And right above example number 2 is the second formula. And the second formula is about paying off a loan. So instead of putting investments and having your investments grow into something, this is saying someone has given you money and you're paying monthly to pay that money off. How long is it going to take? How much is this loan going to cost you? So we go to our second example, which is a more realistic thing for something that probably could happen to you. You go out to buy a car. That car is going to cost you $15,000, but you don't have $15,000. The bank says, no problem. Could you afford $300 a month? And you're like, yes. Okay? We're going to charge you 6% interest. And now you're going to find out, well, how long is this going to take me to pay off? So again, I'll write out the formula here. The formula says the present value of the loan is equal to R, big square bracket, 1 plus I to the negative n. Oh, sorry, 1 minus. I had myself 1 minus 1 plus I to the negative n all over I. So a very similar formula. And again, your interest, the I part of this formula is the interest rate divided by the number of compounding periods. So using some of the letters that we had before. But again, on a test, every letter or every variable in the formula will be explained to you. Person borrows $15,000. That is the present value of the loan. We're making payments of $300. 1 minus. The interest rate is 6%, so as a decimal, that's 0.06. Compounded monthly, so it's divided by 12. To the negative n, all divided by 0.06. 12. Once again, here is your power. And we're going to do mathematics to get that by itself. So just like before, I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.06 over 12. That will simplify this. Go to my calculator. 15,000 times 0.06 divided by 12 is 75. Again, there's my power. That's what I want to try to get by itself. Next, I'm going to divide both sides by 300. And interestingly, on the final exam, okay, we're going to get that power by itself. Can you see next, you could move the 1 over by subtracting 1 on both sides, and you would get negative 0.75 equals negative, we still have a negative there. And technically, that power isn't by itself yet. Because of the negative, you'd have to multiply both sides by a negative number to finally get and on the grade 12 provincial exam, I'm going to just zoom out here, view this as the entire page just temporarily for you guys. Okay? They'll give you a half a mark for plugging in everything into the equation in the right spot. And then they will consider all of this work that we did to get the power by itself. All of that work is stuff before grade 12. So sometimes they give you a half a mark for all of that work. Then, once you've got it by itself, putting the word log in front of both of these, and even, okay, watch this. This step right here, can you see that I took the log of both sides, and I also moved the -1 out in front? That's worth 2 marks. So the amount of stuff you write isn't proportional to where the marks are. The marks on a grade 12 test are testing, do you know the new stuff? We assume getting that green box by itself, that's math from previous years. You know how to do order of operations, should know how to work with equations, and simplify. So all of that work from here to here, half mark. This step, taking the log of both sides, is a concept you learned in grade 12. That's worth 1 mark. Using the log law to bring the n in front, that's worth another mark. And now, I can zoom back, so we're getting a little small. And now I can get n by itself by dividing by the negative and the log of 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12. So typing this all in, you get 57.68. What does that mean? That means you will pay your full payment of $300 57 times, and your last payment will be a little bit smaller. Because, so you'll need 58 payments, 57 full payments of $300 and 1 partial payment. Now this is where knowing about mathematics and how these numbers work will probably help you make some decisions. Okay? Look at this car. This car you bought for $15,000. But if someone says, how much did you pay for that car? The normal human response is $15,000, but you paid actually more for this car. If we want to find out how much we paid for this car, okay, I could take 57.68 payments, times that by $300, you paid an extra $2,304 of interest for that car. So buying it for $15,000 actually is going to cost you over $17,000 in the end, okay? But you might have to consider, well, I need a car for my work. If I don't have a car, I can't get to my work. If I can't get to my work, I can't make money. So sometimes these expenses you have to sort of take on for yourself, okay? And you might say, this for me is worthwhile because I need a car for my work. So then I have to pay the interest because my other option is to not work, and that's worse off for me, okay? What I'm going to also show you, for those of you that have a graphing calculator, for those of you that don't, there are lots of apps online that you can quickly find that do this. On your graphing calculator, if you have it, and we're going to hit the apps button, and the very first one is finance, And the very first thing is TVM solver. The T stands for time, value, and money. And if you look up TVM app online or on Google, you can find something similar. With each of these, you need to know how they work. The online ones are probably more intuitive than the graphing calculator. But what we're going to do is we're going to figure out this exact same question using the calculator. And if you have a calculator, we're going to, here, I'll just scroll down here. We're going to, let's see, did I have those in the right order? Yes, okay. First of all, we're going to say what each of these things stands for. The N is your number of payments. Your I is your interest rate. But you just put it in as a natural interest rate. You don't have to put it in as a decimal. PV stands for the present value. PMT stands for the payment. FV is the future value. CY is compounds per year, and PY is payments per year. So in our question, oh, and a note, money or things money or things given to you, like they give you the car, that's basically them giving you $15,000, okay? Those always get put in as positive, and payments or investments, in other words, anytime you're giving money away, putting or giving money away is always negative. So now we're going to solve the first two questions that we did with this program to see how fast a program can give you the exact same answer. Okay, so let's do the car one first. We were solving for the number of payments. That's the N. I'm going to leave that right now. You can put a 1 in. It doesn't matter the number that's in there. We're going to solve for that one. But I'm going to put in everything else. We're told the interest rate was 6%. They give us the car. They are basically giving us $15,000. That's a positive number because you are getting the car. Anytime you are getting something, putting it into your pocket, don't put the car in your pocket, but that is a positive value. You are making payments of $300, that's a negative value because you have to pay it and give it to somebody else. Even when you're doing an investment question, which we'll do the first one with this as well, that's a payment you're giving money back to someone. In the future, how much money do you want to owe them? $0. So we want our future value of this loan to go down to 0. We're making payments 12 times per year, and it's compounded 12 times per year. This was all part of the question. We leave the payment thing on end, and you go up to the one that you don't know, and we didn't know how many payments were going to be. And above the enter button, in green for me it says solve. You can push the alpha button and solve, and we get the 57.68 right away. This program is really, really helpful because if you are playing around with, you want to buy a car, you will want an app that tells you these things quickly, rather than having to do, just a second, I'm going to just do some logarithms here. You're not going to do that when you're sitting with someone buying a car. You would like to have an app that tells you these answers quickly. And in fact, once I find that answer, I can even do some math in here. I can say, well, how much is this car going to cost me? I can take this whole number, times it by 300, and find out, oh, it is going to cost me $17,304. Looking at our first question. So let's go back to the first question, which was the investment one. How long would it take? So again, we don't know N. We're told the interest rate is 6% again, so that stays the same. The present value is you have no money, but you are putting away $200 a month, okay? So this is going to be negative because you are taking it out of your pocket and giving it to the bank. But you want the future to be $100,000, and when you take it out, the bank is going to be giving you back that money at $100,000. And we found out at 12 payments per year, compounded monthly, alpha sol, there's the exact same number, 251.17. Okay? And now we are going to get into some interesting math, because we are going to look at the example that was done, example 2, but we're buying a house. So if we go to the actual example number 2 here, a person wants to borrow $200,000 to buy a house. Currently in Winnipeg, that's one of the cheaper houses these days. Housing prices have gone up quite a bit. The person can afford to pay $1,500 a month. The mortgage will be paid in equal monthly payments of 4% annual interest, compounded monthly. How many monthly payments will they have to make? So we're going to do this question on our calculator first. We don't know N. We know the interest rate is 4. You are getting the house, so it's like the bank is giving you $200,000. We're making payments of $1,500 a month. In the end, you don't want to owe the bank anything, and it's told that it's compounded monthly, and you're making monthly payments. So all of these things are the same. And when we go here, alpha sol, it will take you 176 payments. Okay? If I do 176 divided by 12, 14.6 years, almost 15 years to pay off this house. Not bad, okay? Just perspective-wise, most people when they buy their first house make a plan in Canada to pay it over 25 years. So this is actually pretty fast. How much will you pay for this house? Okay? Times that by the $1,500, that $200,000 house is going to cost you $265,000. You are giving the bank $65,000. And it is my job right now to show you the effects of interest rates and how hopefully you can save yourself some money over time by paying attention to this. Okay? So, first of all, we're going to start off with this cheaper house because you're buying your very first house, so you can't afford a lot. You are going to buy a cheaper house. Okay? You've decided to buy this one. And normally, you do it over 25 years instead of 15 years. So if I do 25 times 12, you would make 300 payments normally. And so the question is, well, how much is it going to cost me per month? Obviously, it should be less than 1,500 because we just figured out that 1,500 was how much you would pay it off in about 16 years. So I can do the alpha solve on the payment and find out, okay, if I want to buy this house over 25 years, it's going to cost me $1,055 per month. But if I pay it off, right, how much is it going to cost me now? Does it make sense that since you're paying less and you're doing it over a longer period of time, you're going to have to pay the bank more money? So if I take this amount and say, what's my total cost, and times it by 300, whew, instead of 264, you would be paying $316,000. Okay? So right now, you're paying the bank an extra $116,000 for that house. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to pay to the bank. And what most people do when they're looking at buying a house is say, well, how much can I afford per month? What's the most I can afford? And so if you said it's around $1,000, and they said, okay, this one's going to cost you $1,055, you say, okay, I'm going to buy this house. And it's going to cost me, now I find out, I'm going to pay an extra $116,000. I'm going to show you some ways that you can make that $116,000 less. Because I personally don't like giving money to the bank. They make their money, it's good, I'm happy that they're there, because they let me buy a house. Right? It'd be kind of disgusting if you came to school and you're like, Mr. JR, do you sleep here? That would be, a little scary. But what are ways that we can save? The number one way that you can save money on your house is if you can negotiate a better interest rate. So we're going to start off, I'm going to write this number on the board. What was the total when I times this by 300? Okay. So we're starting off with buying a $200,000 house, and it's costing us $316,700. Okay. First way that you're going to save money is if you work really hard to get the best interest rate possible. Check out different banks. Have them compete with each other. Ask questions. Don't just be resolved to take what rate they give you at the beginning. Now let's say you spend a lot of time and all you can negotiate is 0.5% off. And you're like, what's that? I spent so much time on that. I only saved a half. Like, it would be like, can you imagine a Mark arguing with me for 8 hours, and then at the end I say, okay, I will give you an extra half a mark. You'd be like, you know what? That probably wasn't worth it. 8 hours of my time and I only got a half a mark. But will it be worth it in this case? So if you save that half a mark, we're still paying it over 25 years. The starting value is still the same. I'm going to solve for the payment, and instead of $1,055, it's $1,000. How much does that save us? Right? Well, over 300 payments. Again, it doesn't seem like very much at the beginning, but if we do that over 300 payments, we are now down to 300,000. That 0.5% is going to save you $16,000. That's significant. Okay? The next thing that people don't realize is when they buy their house at the beginning, you buy it when it's sort of like you're making the least amount of money in your job ever. Because everybody starts their job at the lowest part of their job, and then over time you get raises and you make more money. have a choice now. You can either have that more money and be like, I'm gonna buy new shoes, I'm gonna buy new, I'm gonna go to more Jets games. You can spend that money on entertainment or on things or on trips and say I have more money. Or you could decide to change how much you're paying per month. Okay? What kind of difference does that make? So right now, we got our interest rate down to 3.5%, but you find out after a couple of years of working, you can actually afford to pay more on your mortgage because you're making more money. So what would it look like if you put a little bit more money against this and say, you know what, we would like to change our payments from $1,000 to $1,200. What would that do? Well, that's going to save you time. You're going to pay it off faster. So instead of taking 25 years, Alpha Sol, we've reduced that from 300 payments to 228. That's significant. For one, is you'll be done paying it earlier. And two, when we now go and check, well, how much is this going to cost us to buy this house? And I take this and times this by 228.589. Enter. We've reduced it now another $26,000. We're down to 274. We are now $50,000 less than you started with. That's a lot. Okay? And especially if you attack your mortgage early, you'll make a bigger difference over time. So you're like, oh, if I can raise it to $1,200 and pay it off faster, and what I think I mentioned yesterday, I feel like compared to the average person that just keeps things the same and doesn't worry about it, making those changes, it's easy to save yourself $50,000. Okay? Negotiating that interest rate is huge. Investigating trends in the market and what makes the most sense is very important. So now you've saved that value again, right? What were we paying? We were paying $1,200, okay? And we knocked it down to 228 payments. Some banks will say, well, would you like to pay monthly, or would you like to pay every 2 weeks? So let's say what happens if we decide to pay half of this, but instead of 12 times, every 2 weeks would be 26 times a year. Okay? So do you see that you make an extra $1,200 payment in a year? Because normally you do $1,200 for 12 months. So you cut it in half, but do every 2 weeks. There's an extra 2 payments that you do. So now if I solve for this, the number of payments, it's going to be bigger because I'm making more payments and they're smaller amounts. I can solve for this. 442. But just making that little decision to go every 2 weeks instead of once a month takes off another 10 grand. Crazy. Little things that you can do that can save you a lot of money. Now, interest rates are very exciting right now because they're changing. Things are happening, right? At this point, most mortgages, okay? Most mortgages right now you can get are probably around 5%. Most houses cost you between $300,000 and $400,000. So let's go for a cheaper one at $300,000. Oh, and we're going to stick to what most people do, which is compounded. Payments 12 times. Technically in Canada, the rules are that banks can only compound interest 2 times per year. which is in favor of you as a buyer, but overall, doesn't make a huge difference. It's the interest rate that does make the hugest difference. So if we go and solve this right now, you want to buy that $300,000 house at 5% interest, you have to make sure you have $1,800 a month available to pay for that. That's a lot of money, right? Think about the job you have right now. Would almost all of your money go into paying for that house? And in the end, when we figure out, well, how much are you paying for this $300,000 house? Okay, $523,000. That's a lot of extra money that's going to the bank. Is that worth it for you? Okay. The other thing, though, about a house is 25 years later, houses are things that go up in price. So they will be worth more 25 years from now than they are right now. That's the opposite of a car. Does anybody have a 25-year-old car at home? And if you do, how much is it worth? Probably not very much, because it's so old, right? As cars get older, their value goes down. But as houses get older, their value goes up. Anyways, something interesting. Talk to your grandparents, because in the 1980s, interest rates on houses went up as high as 18%. 18% is crazy. If you had to pay for this same house at 18%, instead of your payments being $1,700, they would be $4,400. At 18% interest, times by 300 payments, how much would you pay for your $300,000 house? Look at this. $1.3 million. You would pay an extra $1 million to the bank in interest. So in the 1980s, a lot of people decided, no, I'm not going to buy a house. I'm going to rent because it doesn't make sense to me right now to pay that high of an interest rate. Right? As compared to when interest rates were really, really low, sometimes you could even get an interest rate at like 1.5%. Look at the difference. Instead of paying $1.3 million, you paid $350,000. You only paid $59,000 worth of interest, as opposed to $1 million worth of interest. Huge difference. So, one, if you can negotiate your interest rate down, that's going to save you money. Two, if you start getting more money, and you can put that more money against your mortgage early, or against your car loan, anytime if you have debt and you have extra money that you can put against that, that is guaranteed to save you money. And it will save you money. You don't have to pay taxes on money you save. If you took that same amount and put it in an investment that made you money, the government will say, good job, you made money, you have to pay taxes. But anytime you save money, you don't have to pay taxes. So it's advantageous that way as well. Okay? And a third thing is if you make payments more often, right? Changing from monthly to every 2 weeks, it's just something small. There will be 2 months in the year that you have to do extra payments, because you make an extra payment every year. But that saved us another $10,000. Each of these things can save you tons of money over your lifetime, which is kind of cool to know about, rather than just, oh yeah, that's my mortgage, I don't care, I'll just pay it. But it is super nice, you know, when you've paid off your mortgage in 15 years instead of 25, and your friends are like, how come you're going on a trip now? Well, now you have the money to do it. Okay. So, questions for practice on number 2 are 7 and 12.